Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, Beth, am I making you the host or is somebody-
Actually, it's gonna have to be Reese because,
Reese? Okay,
yeah, and he'll be on.
no problem.
Oh, I have all kinds of technical issues this afternoon.
Oh, no.
Right. And I can't even get my headphones to connect.
Oh, no. No problem. I can
Okay.
easily make him the host.
Okay. I'm gonna leave and rejoin and see if I can
Okay.
get them to attach. Okay.
Sounds good. There's John.
I'm going to work on like learning, like learning some of you. One thing.
Okay, Reese, I'm gonna go ahead and make you the host of the meeting.
Okay.
Today,
Thank you.
because I plan on sharing more blogs and different things.
I'm sorry?
Is there an option to mute?
Okay, so Reese, are you good with?
Yep. PowerPoint up. I will share my screen. Wait there.
Hey, Beth and John, I'm not sure there's a waiting room enabled, so there might be people join from the public early here. I don't know if Erin is one of those.
I'm guessing she is probably for from the public.
Okay, Reese, why don't you share just to confirm we're good to go before, and folks will just join in. We won't be opening it up for them.
And is there a chat? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, John, I don't know, do you see a chat in your link? Did she not enable chat, maybe?
Let's see.
I don't see a chat, no.
Is there a way
Okay.
to email her real quick? Maybe she doesn't enable that.
Okay, well then we can hopefully
Okay.
just tell people the link, but we're gonna need to give people this link.
Oh, yeah, we can't make the polling work without it.
I sent her an email. We'll see what happens. we may have a small enough group where maybe we can do it by voice.
Yeah, the
Hopefully,
only,
well, people won't be able to see the like options for discussion.
so Reese, let's do this. Let's just,
Mhm.
this is what we're gonna have to work with. And we'll give it a few more minutes and see how many more folks we get. If we only get a couple more, we'll just do it out loud. But if not, we can just tell them what the link is.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not too hard if we just say pollev.com/OB consulting. Yeah. So it should be, we can make it work.
Yeah. You could type it on there.
Yeah, I can also share my screen with the link so they can see what it is.
Yeah. Okay, well, why don't we at least kind of pull up our screen and we'll get ready to get started and we'll see if anyone else kind of filters in. Okay, John, do you want to say hello and kind of introduce yourself in the city, and we'll kind of go from there. And we'll just ask that all participants mute. You're possible.
Hello, my name is John Boberil, and I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department of the City of Englewood. And I really thank you for attending this presentation this evening. This presentation is on planning for the Little Dry Creek Trail and the Englewood Parkway corridor. In the past, we've heard a lot of things from Englewood citizens about how the current situation is not safe for bicyclists. It's unpleasant for pedestrians. The trail is not clearly signed or indicated what the route is. And it's really a missed opportunity. And at the same time, we have been doing some planning work for redevelopment at City Center. And a lot of other changes are coming to the area as well. You may have noticed that Hobby Lobby and Big Lots have both vacated the Englewood Marketplace and Englewood Plaza. And so we believe that there's going to be redevelopment pressures coming along very quickly for these areas. And it represents an opportunity for the city to reinvent this area, especially these two corridors. We were able to get a grant from DRCOG, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, to do this project. So we hired OV Consulting to help us out. And so then I think I will then turn it over to Beth and Reese.
All right, great. Go ahead, Reese. Let's just kind of move into things. I'm Beth Vogelsang. I'm with OV Consulting, and with me tonight is Reese Shaw. He's an urban planner in our office, and we're excited to be working for the city on this interesting and challenging area. So tonight we're going to run you through a number of things, and we just ask that in terms of managing the meeting, just make sure you're muted. And if you have a question, or we'll pause for questions along the way, just raise your hand if you can, and we'll make sure to call on you. And I think if the group is small enough, we can just have some dialogue. We also have some polling built into our presentation, and we'll just see how that works when we get there. We don't appear to have a chat tonight, so just something to kind of work with. So the purpose of this project, the Englewood Parkway Multimodal Study, is to look at different configurations for Englewood Parkway. So what do we really want Englewood Parkway to look and act like? And how does it relate to the previous studies that were done in the area? What are some of the short-term options for us to look at that might be done immediately? And then what is this longer, bigger, long-term vision of what we'd really like to see here over the course of time? So tonight we're here to talk to you about this and to gather your input on this topic. So this is our study area. And this, of course, is, I'm going to reduce my slides here. This, of course, is from the red, from the essentially the rail line to Broadway is the primary place that we're looking at. But you remember, this area continues across Broadway and through downtown and all the way over to the hospital district. So really, when we think about how we want Englewood Parkway to work, we should think of the whole section of Englewood. But tonight we're focused primarily on the Parkway. All right, so I wanted to share with you a little bit about our schedule. We have been working on things for the past essentially 5 months. We looked at a lot of planning work that was done previously, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about some short-term options. We're now moving into this long-term visioning, which really extends through the length of the project. And here we are at our community public meeting and kind of working toward our goal of producing the report. So we've had the opportunity to work with the technical advisory committee at the city and had at least 2 meetings with them. We've been to city council for a study session update and talked about things. And we've met with many of the boards in the city, the mobility, the ETAC board, the sustainability board, parks, and even the downtown district, the economic district for downtown. So along the way, we've had lots of conversations, and tonight, May 18th, we're here to visit with the public. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Vogelsang, and he is going to talk a little bit about how the engineering team has been examining short-term options for us. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
sure.
Chris.
Thanks, Beth. Yeah, I'm here. Hey, everybody. One of the things we looked at, it's kind of got short-term and long-term ideas. And what this slide shows is for the short-term alternatives, short-term being what could we do kind of quickly and inexpensively to make things better and test some ideas out. Key issues we were looking at were, calming traffic along the parkway, getting a greater consistency among facility types, visibility and safety of pedestrians and bicyclists, and increased walkability. We heard a lot of people have said, hey, getting from the wellness district to the station's hard. It's kind of like tricky, and each block's a little different. So those are the key issues we're looking at. And I wanted to share, we've kind of worked out a whole plan for the corridor. You can see it's real small there at the bottom with a bunch of notes. We've been working with community planning development and public works on some details. We wanted to share some kind of key things to give you a sense of what we're looking at. So if we can go to the next slide. Great. So traffic calming. Here's an example of some traffic calming ideas we had. In addition to kind of tightening up intersections a little bit and reducing turning speeds, we're trying to reduce the speed along Englewood Parkway. And this is an example here. If you see in the middle there, you'll see a couple of kind of gray rectangles with black lines in them. Those are speed cushions, right? And those are vertical deflection. They're like 4 inches high, and they're intended to get cars to slow down as they go along Englewood Parkway. A couple of issues we've talked about here. We might make some tweaks to this, making sure emergency vehicles aren't impacted, but still getting the same kind of speed reduction we're looking for from private autos. So that was one idea. We had that still kind of trying to decide, implementability, but get those speeds down. And then the next slide, please. So the roundabout, right? So kind of on the eastern third of the corridor, there's this really big roundabout that seems out of place anymore. And that was developed, that was built when kind of this area redeveloped, and it was designed to handle different kind of traffic than we're seeing and bigger vehicles and that sort of thing. And that just hasn't developed, and that's not really kind of what we're trying to do here right now. So we had some ideas. Right now, you can probably go, if you're going north, kind of towards the top of the picture to take a right, you probably go around that at 40 miles an hour if you really wanted to. Very fast, and creates some pedestrian safety issues. And so what we're showing here are some inexpensive ideas with vertical flex posts, those kind of I guess they're PVC plastic looking posts, right, that are bolted to the concrete that would bend if you hit them, and some striping to try to reduce the width of the circle. So you have to go slower around it and kind of reduce the entry widths as you come in. So you have to slow down as you enter. And it's really important to try to match the entry speed with the speed that goes around the circle. That makes it a safe environment. And we're also, if you can see on there, there's kind of red crosswalks at the edges. Those are pretty far back. And that was kind of an older design standard when this was developed. And that thinking has changed. And so we're talking about moving those crosswalks closer to the circle for pedestrian visibility and safety, and make that work better. So get the speeds down, make the pedestrians more visible, and kind of make that a safer intersection. Next, please. Okay, so the other thing we heard was about bike facilities. So that was kind of pedestrian oriented stuff, trying to get the safety. We're talking about consistent facilities and putting some buffered bike lanes, some on the street bike lanes. There's quite a bit of extra space in a lot of this corridor where we can fit these improvements without like taking a travel lane and those sort of things. So you'll see on there kind of two views. On the left side of that view is kind of near, there's like a medical building there. And the idea is repurpose that space. There's no on-street parking allowed today. And make a safe place for bikes to go east-west. And on the right side is the 4-lane section of Englewood Parkway. That is more parkway-like with the trees in the middle. The idea here is, we don't think the traffic volumes warrant 4 lanes that are needed. So let's take that outside lane. Let's make it safe for bikes. Let's maintain the RTD bus stops and the Englewood trolley stops that are along there and make all that work. But try to make it feel like more of a slower multimodal feel instead of, this 4-lane thing that rips up to the roundabout and over to Broadway. So those are kind of 3 ideas or 3, snapshots of the corridor and how we're thinking about it, Beth. With that, I'll probably turn it back over.
Great. Okay, so I do want to stop for just 1 minute and see if there are any specific questions for Chris on the short-term ideas. These are, of course, concepts for the city to consider coming out of the study, not immediate action items. So is there anyone that has particular questions or would like to raise their hand? Okay, I don't see anyone. So, all right, well, then let's move forward off of the short-term ideas and we'll move into more of our long-term visioning. So this illustrates the corridor that we're talking about, and we've broken it into 6 segments, and that just kind of helps with thinking through how do we think about each segment of this street and what are the different characteristics that we face under each segment. And Chris gave you a nice snapshot of how some of those pieces look a lot different in different places. So in segment 1 and 2, those are images that are part of the city center redevelopment effort. So for now, we're considering that redevelopment in some form or fashion would take place and follow some pattern like that. And that would influence the way that the first 2 segments of the corridor work. And so when we think about reimagining the whole thing, we are thinking specifically about 3, 4, 5, and even that segment of 6 that links over. So that's kind of how we think about the corridor. As we went through all the plans that support this area, there's been a lot of studies, and this just gives you a nice list of everything that's been looked at. It's been going on since 2013. And so we've had a lot of opportunities to decide, what is important out here or what should be happening. And so the image that you see to the right is sort of a compilation of all these different ideas. And the purple circles represent the points that are sort of the gateway or entrances to the city center area and indicate that those should be comfortable, visible, and easily accessible. Those are the points at which you want to come into the area. And then you have your bike and pedestrian connections that are identified through and across. And those are indicated with those marks. And then the big takeaway is that really through all the other studies that have taken place, Englewood Parkway is a pedestrian priority. You know, we want to be able to move people up and down safely from the rail station to uses within city center and on to Broadway and further on. So those are kind of the big picture takeaways from the studies that we've read. And then most recently, we've had the Englewood Downtown Plan. And it's nice to just kind of note some of the big things that came out of the Englewood Downtown Plan, creating the authority, which is in place. The EDDA is the new authority that's over downtown, extending that vibrancy, creating an active, vibrant culture and a distinct brand and identity, cultivating that activation of street level activities, connecting multimodally through the whole area, working with our partners, increasing safety for all users, and promoting infill. So kind of working with that redevelopment pattern. And so those elements of the downtown plan are sort of guiding our thinking about things as we talk about city center. So go ahead, Chris. One of the first things we did when we met with the other groups that I was describing to you is we started to ask the question, you know, what is important to you? So when you think about Englewood Parkway and you think about, you know, the adjacent land uses and the issues that you face when you try to get through that area, what is most important? And this just indicates we heard a lot about pedestrian activity and activation. We heard a lot about green space, meaning not so much of that asphalt, let's green things up. Multimodal, meaning all of the modes, bikes, walking, scooters. You know, we talked a lot about different modes of transportation. And those were really some of the ones that stood out as most important. And so tonight, we were going to post the link in the chat, but we don't have a chat. So there you go, Reese, go ahead and do that. We want to ask you guys what you would like, what you find to be the most important to add to our bubble there. So this is what you need to type in, and if you click it, you can get to this survey. So normally we would have it in the chat and you just click on it, but we don't have a chat tonight. So
Beth, can you see that link at the top too? Do I need this Word document here? Or can you see that there at the top?
yes, we can see it at the top. Yeah.
Okay, great. So yes, everybody just goes to that pollev.com/ovconsulting414. Then you'll be able to interactively respond to some of these questions that we're gonna have in the presentation.
Yeah. And if you, let's just try. Yes, Judith. Go ahead. See if anyone can make it work.
So the poll is now active.
I don't know how to do this. Do I just click on this black bar at the top?
No, so you're gonna have to actually open up a new tab in your browser wherever they're using
I don't know
internet.
how to do that. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So
But I can ask a question. Yeah, I can ask a question later, but no, I wouldn't know how to open up a tab. Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. We will just, if you would like to just say out loud, what are your most important things? We can add it in.
Yeah, I want to know about driving. Can
Driving.
I drive?
Okay, so
Can I drive to Walmart, City Council, library? Can I go drive there to vote?
yeah, okay, good comment. Because certainly the intent is not to eliminate driving on Englewood Parkway. And while we would like pedestrian space and bikes and different things, we absolutely need to remember that folks need to be able to drive through here as well. So that's a great comment.
And there'll be buses. Okay,
Yeah, and buses, yeah, transit.
All right.
So let's add transit to this too.
thank you.
Absolutely. Brenda, is anyone else having issues with?
No, let me tell you, the city doesn't ever let us use that chat feature in any of our city meetings, just FYI. Might talk to the city clerk and see if that open for you, but that is kind of an irritating thing versus what we all are used to in our work lives. But for those of you who are wondering how I open a tab, you can do this on your phone also. So I've got this on my laptop, or vice versa. If you're watching this on your phone and you've got a laptop in front of you, you can type in that on a browser window. And I am there. I can see it. I'm on the survey.
Yes, good, thank you. Yes, we didn't know about this till we were already on. Yeah, but this is great. I see that we are getting some responses, so I know people have figured it out, and we're able to add, we did put transit in there, right? Or, yeah. Okay.
Yep, I typed that one in there.
Okay, perfect. All right. Great. So this is it's really important because it helps us think about what is the balance. When we think about a vision for the street, what is the balance, right? So we need peds, bikes, and driving. So we have to kind of allocate the space we have, you know, equitably and safely. And so this helps to create where we're headed, and we'll go farther with this. Yes,
It looks
Jenna.
like, yep.
Hi, sorry, I joined a little late, so I'm still catching up, but I just wanted to point out, in case anyone else was having this issue, it looked like one of the links on the Englewood website for this meeting was not working. I had to go to a different page, like the Englewood News link, but the link on the Englewood News website page was not working. And then I went to the multimodal specific page and that link did work. So I don't know if anyone else had that issue, but just wanted to point it out.
Okay, we will, yeah, let's see how we do with attendance, and if we need to, we'll make sure we get everything posted or have options online for folks. I hopefully they figured it out. Yes, David. Did you have a question, David? I see your hand is up.
No, I'm sorry, but I also had a problem getting in from the website, so I didn't mean to raise my hand there, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, that's okay. But thank you for letting us know. That's helpful. Not sure why, but that's really helpful to know. All right, so okay, so let's move on because and if you still had something, we'll still roll in, but that will help us, and we will add that to the other responses we had from departments and agent boards and different representatives and
you should be able to keep typing your answers into this chat until we reach the next question in a few slides, so you can still enter responses for the time being.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's go through. So these are some goals, and I'd be really curious now. So you've thought about this a little bit, and you've entered what your responses were. Currently, these are draft goals that we've been developing based on input. So let's run through them and see, does this hit on what you were thinking is important? Okay, so increasing comfortable multimodal transportation choices, and by that we really mean bikes, peds, transit, and driving. So all modes. Okay, so that's where that's covered. Provide a continuous visible connection between Englewood Station, the light rail station, downtown, and what we call the wellness district, which is the hospitals. And that may or may not have come across as so important with you guys, but definitely is of interest to the city, right? That there be this continuity and visibility between all parts of town. Increase publicly accessible green space. This is an idea, reconnect Little Dry Creek through City Center as a regional trail. We'll talk about that a little more. Decrease the urban heat island effect, and that just means all the heat that generates out of the asphalt with no trees around, and through increasing the tree canopy, so adding trees to this area. And trees could also be other green shrubs, you know. Foster a sense of place through pedestrian-oriented mixed-use development. So that's sort of getting at the type of development that we encourage as we go forward, and that it's an active pedestrian level orientation. And strengthening public-private partnerships to explore ownership options. And that's probably a little outside of the general community's interest, but that's part of that redevelopment effort on the part of the city, working with private developers as well. So does anyone have anything else? Those are the goals as they exist right now. And I guess if you have thoughts, maybe we'll come back to that, or you can raise your hand, jot down a note or two. But we'd be happy to take, maybe we'll put our email addresses up at the end and you can share your thoughts afterward.
And at the end of the presentation, there will be another open-ended response option, so you can get some of those thoughts in there too.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So those are the goals currently, but we're happy to adjust these to reflect whatever you're thinking as well. So, all right. So then as we kind of develop those goals, we said, all right, well, what are the vision elements here? What are we trying to what does our vision consist of? And of course, it's a multimodal corridor, but we had heard quite a bit about trails. We heard about placemaking, this idea of making this area not a parking lot, but a place. Lots of ideas around park space and what is that? And of course, landscaping, trees, all of those pieces. So what we wanted to do tonight is kind of dive into each of these and get your opinions and thoughts around these topics. And of course, if there's a topic we're missing, you just let us know. So the first one, vision element, is the actual multimodal corridor. So what we've heard so far is we should have a balance of all these modes, which I was kind of hinting at earlier, that we should have safe and comfortable facilities. So if that means things need to be separated, that's fine. Mixed use development or, redevelopment of the area should support pedestrian walking and activation. Bikes facilities should be separated. So a separate lane or facility for bikes than our pedestrians. Visible treatments. I'm not sure about that one. Traffic calming. So just slowing things down a little bit, but not eliminating cars. And definitely accommodating the senior population. And this one came up a number of times along the way, simply because we have a fair number of seniors in our downtown and just making sure that this is a safe, comfortable place to be and walk. So with those in mind, we wanted to share with you, this is the existing road that we have out there today. Okay, and it has 2 travel lanes and a center turn lane in most locations. A landscape buffer along the edge, which is not too much landscape, but there in certain areas there are more than other areas, and a 5-foot sidewalk. And so it differs. And I know like this is just in front of Hobby Lobby, but remember segment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The right of way is as small as 62 feet all the way up to 108 in every one. It's all different. So part of the thought is that it would be nice if we had one consistent street configuration, and so you knew what you were going to get the whole way across the street. So that's what we have today. And then when we think about our vision for this, we're talking pedestrians, bikes, public transportation, and sorry, what does that what's the last one say there? My window's in the way.
That's curbside uses such as areas for parking or bike racks or different areas along the curb.
Yes. Okay. So we looked at okay, perfect. So let's go to our next polling question. And this one, you're just going to enter A, B, C, D, or E and answer what is most important.
And you should be able to just click on the option and you can select to as many options as you like, all the options that are relevant to you and that matter most to you.
Okay. All right. Your answers can still come in, but it's kind of interesting that we're still hearing about walking. Okay, biking's in a close second. That is still very important to folks, and if not the a priority mode. But of course, we're looking at balancing all these modes, so good. Walking and biking are both kind of up there. Interesting. All right. Okay, well, excellent. Good. All right, let's move on. This we'll have final results as your results for a roll in, but that this is helpful to us. And then I want to share with you, we kind of explored some options. We did some different layouts, and I'll share with you where we are landing right now, but this is to be talked about with you guys. So this version at the top of the screen shows you that we have 2 travel lanes. We have parking in most sections. I know sometimes it's more narrow, but we would be attempting to have a consistent cross section. So parking, and then an on-street bike lane, that's the green. And that's on the actual street, maybe separated by a little barrier or planters. And then the tree lawn or the amenity zone, and then the sidewalk. Okay, so that was one option we explored. And then we went down to the one at the bottom there, which is very similar. But what we did is we grouped the bicycle facilities. We moved them up off the street on adjacent to the sidewalk, and we made them one lane each direction in what's called a cycle track. So that was another idea, right, that we kind of explored. And we got some feedback on those. Some people like that 2-way cycle track. Some people really don't, and they'd rather be on the side of the street than the direction they're traveling. So we played around with those, and then we've come up with sort of call it a draft vision, a picture for you guys to sort of react to or think about. So this is the idea of, all right, well, what if we have our 2 travel lanes in the center, and you can see we have cars, buses, and parking, all right? Then we have above the curb our bike path, so to speak, so going in each direction on each side of the street, and that is separated by the tree lawn in between, or benches or whatever choice that there would be. And then comes the sidewalk adjacent to the development. And so this is based on those other pictures. We heard a lot of info and reaction, and this is kind of the picture that came to life. And so curious, how you guys like that or don't like that. We have a question for you specifically about the bike lanes, because wait, Reese, can you go back one for just 1 second? Because we are going to ask you that question.
Sure.
So before we jump, let's just look at this for a second. The sidewalk is the sidewalk, right? We're showing a 10-foot sidewalk, so nice and wide. Parking is parking, and the travel lanes are typically, one in each direction. So the real piece that causes the change, or it makes you think differently, is how do we deal with the bicycles? And do you prefer them to be on the street? Do you prefer them to be above the curb? Do you like them next to the sidewalk or separate? How do you imagine safe and comfortable for families and other, riders, not cyclists, but just riders, general community riders that want to get out and travel through this area? So, okay, so let's go to the polling question.
And then you might want to just scroll down so you can see all the options that are available to you if you're filling out the poll. So there should be 3 options total.
Okay, so just A, B, and C then.
Yeah,
Okay.
and option A is going to be most like what you just saw in the last image. And then B is that 2-way cycle track that we showed in the rough sketch. And then option C is going to be more of that on-street facility.
Separated or protected by some kind of little barrier or marking, but on the street.
And just as a reminder, if you join late, you can go to that link at the top, pollev.com/OV consulting 414. And that should take you to this survey, just in case you might have joined late.
And again, we apologize, we don't just have the link in the chat, but there's no chat. So is everyone able to respond, or is it seriously everybody just likes A? Yes, Judith, what's your response?
Since I can't do this,
Yeah.
I like the last diagram where you have the bicyclers separate close to the sidewalk, because I'm always afraid I'm going to run over them. So I think it's just safer to keep them off the main street, but I'm not a bicyclist, so
Okay. Gotcha.
Thank you.
And then B is that two-way cycle track where one, they're going both directions, but on one side of the street. And it's it's a great facility, but it is different, right? And so we do sometimes hear people are not a big fan of that idea. So I would say the majority at this point is two facilities up on the curb, separated basically by some amenity zone as the primary. And then followed
It looks
by
like we have
protected
9
facilities.
people so far that have joined in on this.
On this one, okay.
Mhm.
All right, well, if anyone else wants to raise their hand and share their thought, that's just great. Otherwise, we'll kind of keep moving here. All righty. Oh, Cindy, yes. If you're there, Cindy, go ahead.
Do we know what the difference in the cost is to build these different versions?
We have not moved into, we are going to do some high level cost estimates once we all kind of get to where we think things are headed. So I don't have cost estimates yet. I would say that typically, if you have the room and you go with on-street facilities, more like number C, you're looking at paint improvements and post. So those are a little bit cheaper facilities to implement normally, just under normal conditions. And the A, which is a little bit more of an expensive option, but it is really rethinking the space within the street that's dedicated to bikes and pedestrians and really redesigning that. So I'm sure, generally A would be a more expensive option, but remember, we're developing a vision for what we would really like in the long run for the area. All right. Okay. Well, okay, good input. Let's move to the next one. So this gets to the park space and the landscaping and these other aspects of regreening things. So we talked to some folks about when we say park space, what does that mean to you? Is it a big giant green park? Is it smaller pocket parks? Is it a dog park? What is it, right? And in that city center redevelopment that we showed you in the map of the 6 sections, the plan is to make the little traffic, the circle there that's there today in front of the library, which is green, but to eliminate the drive circle and create a nice civic park in front of the library. So what we heard is that throughout the rest of the city center area, we don't need another large civic park. That would be accomplished down by the library. And instead, along Englewood Parkway, we would like smaller pocket parks, integrate the green space everywhere you can. So that was the idea, and you can let us know how you feel about that, but that's what we heard so far. And then increase the trees, just pretty much trees everywhere you can do them. Be very green, but be sustainable. So use, where possible, native vegetation and xeriscape landscape options, water efficient plants and plantings. So just to be cognizant of what we're doing. Try to create a continuous green way or green ribbon, through the area. And of most of all, and we did hear a lot about, make it very safe and accessible to the public. So it's visible and it's active and it's safe for folks. So with that in mind, that's what we heard so far. Oh, sorry. Yep. Let's hear a little bit from you, and I'm happy for you to just speak up as well if you'd like about what is important to you about park space. These are all 3 different pictures. Reese, why don't you describe what these are individually in case they're having trouble?
Yeah, so Image A is going to be sort of more of a park that has interweaving paths throughout. It has that native low water or more water efficient landscaping, and maybe some certain areas with benches, moments to pause. B is more of a larger park that could be integrated into the space, but also with some stormwater management. You can see sort of that gravel pit area that could accommodate some floodwater if needed. And then what we've heard in the past for image C is that some people like more of an organically shaped, smaller pocket parks. And so those could be scattered throughout the corridor, and less of less of those like sharp angles and more of those organic shapes with that option. And then D sort of explores the idea of a linear park that could be integrated alongside the parkway, maybe with some playgrounds or moments for stuff like that.
Yes, Tim.
Looks-
So I'm wondering, like the previous comments, where did those come from?
The previous comments that I was referring to, they were in the meetings that I kind of showed at the beginning, where it was the park board, the ETAC, which is the Transportation or Mobility Board, the Resiliency Board, some of the departments at the city with staff who had thoughts on how things, Parks Department, for instance, and of course, the Economic Development Board or District for Downtown.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why nobody's interested in a larger civic space where you could have events.
Yeah, I think that what I was saying is I think they feel that will be accomplished through the city center redevelopment down there by the library and the turnaround, and that as that redevelops, that will become the big civic center park. That was their thinking, and then we wouldn't want another large civic center park, and that could be in part because of maintenance and security and all the things that go with large parks.
Okay.
Mhm.
That
We
was
can also
the-
go back a few slides too and show you that map where that might be, that large civic center park might be, if that's helpful.
No, I saw that. I saw
Okay.
that.
But that doesn't mean you have to agree. Certainly, have a different opinion. And, but I would say that D, which is coming up as the most, the biggest response right now, is more in line with what we have heard so far, which is integrate these park spaces with development along the street, everywhere we can, but not so huge, just more of a continuous integrated park.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I like all of these.
Sure.
Any way you can get green space into that, sea of asphalt would be a positive. One thing I'm wondering is that, the zoning code for this area is the pretty minimum setback requirements for the buildings, where, getting a lot of green in there is not going to be easy to accomplish based on those codes, especially when there's new development. So, and some of the images you're showing are very green, but you're not going to have the opportunity to do that in new development areas, especially.
A good point. It's a good mention. I think it was something the city can definitely work with developers on, but yes, you're right. The zoning is for a more intense development pattern for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think
Aaron,
those.
have a
Oh yeah,
question?
go ahead, Aaron, first. Yeah.
Thank you. I think a lot of what you guys are sharing is really exciting. And I just wanted to clarify one of the things that I've heard consistently from my neighbors is they would love if the sculptures and different things that are in those parks were safe for kids to climb and play on. Currently in the Civic Center area, there's some really cool public art, but it's hard to engage with in a physical way for the kiddos. And I'm wondering if that's what led to such a strong reaction to option D here as well.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great aspect of thinking through these parks. And And I would say, yeah, so whether it's sculptures that you can climb on or, you know, structures that are supposed to be climbed on, you know, and even sort of that nature play idea where it's rocks and little water and things that, but kind of really incorporating that ability for kids to be part of it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I think currently, to go back to what the zoning allows, that current setback allows about 15 feet along Englewood Parkway. And so there could be some opportunities to incorporate a space like you see in image D here.
Mhm.
I have to say, though, if you're going to put in a generous pedestrian space of, say, 10 feet, then you don't have much room for landscape.
Right. I think another option or another thing to think about and consider is the fact that there's just so many parking lots along the parkway. And so, you know, there would be room to negotiate with developers upon redevelopment of what happens with those parking lots. You know, it's a little bit more flexible than, you know, trying to redevelop existing buildings that are all the way up, butted against the parkway. And so, you know, there might be a little bit of wiggle room to achieve that larger section.
Yes, let's hear from Brenda and then Jenna, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Brenda.
Right. Well, a couple of things. I know that the new zoning code is changing or working on changing the parking requirements of our retail business. I mean, formerly, when they built that big lots and they built that Hobby Lobby, they required all that parking, and obviously they didn't need it. So once that requirement goes away, developers they want to create more building space because they can get more lease opportunity, more renters in there, or what have you. But in speaking about landscape, I mean, I voted for D because that is aesthetically the most pleasing, and yeah, it offers an opportunity to sit and enjoy the grass. But I have a lot of concerns about the maintenance and upkeep and cost and all that water. So I'd seek a balance of a good balance, you know, of some green space and xeriscape.
And that's a perfect segue. I think while we can continue to talk about this to go into the next polling question, which is about those landscaping options specifically along the street and more of the vegetation types that you'd like to see.
Jenna, did you want to have a comment though, real quickly about parks?
I think it kind of applies to this as well. I know some of the images in the last poll included some like green infrastructure, stormwater management. Has there been studies of like how that actually could be implemented along Englewood Parkway and what the potential need would be, or I guess any of the logistics of that, or is that just kind of a high level concept at this point?
That's a really good question. So, so at this point, we have not gone into the design of green infrastructure or determined the exact locations where it would be best or most appropriate. But there is a stormwater study underway with Mile High Flood District for the city as well, and really understanding some of those patterns of where our water rolls and what it picks up along the way and how we can improve our water quality is a great supplement to thinking about what we would like to do along the parkway. And so I think even though our vision doesn't have to specifically design where it needs to go, that could be a subsequent step. But I think if we think that's an important aspect of our landscape, and that's not just landscape, but it's actually water quality improvement, then that should be part of our vision. Yeah, I think it's a really great point. And Little Dry Creek, you know, is an area where it's a low point, and so water does roll into this area. So I would think that water quality planters and facilities would be a great addition for sure. Okay. All right, wonderful. All right, let's, that looks like B is kind of the look or feel that folks are thinking. So some trees, but also just flowers and plants. And I'm sure there could be some xeriscape type of landscape in there as well, coupled with the sidewalk. So kind of that, very defined space along the corridor. All right, let's move on. Okay, and then let's talk some about trails. So one of the ideas that has come up and things we've heard is that we could reconnect Little Dry Creek Trail through city center. And we're going to look at a map so I can explain that to you a little bit more. And that is part of, say, a regional trail that is very much a trail. Okay. We also have ideas around an urban trail, which is really mostly like a sidewalk, but it's marked in a certain way, or it has a little bit more of a certain characteristics that could be considered an urban version of a trail. We've heard about a wellness trail. So that idea where we're linking the station to downtown to the hospital. Well, perhaps, if this safe, comfortable walking facility for seniors is also part of a wellness link or a wellness trail or something through the area. Again, senior friendly, working really nicely with redevelopment and a little different type of development than we have out there today, and wayfinding or signage, different things to point things out along the way. So that's what we've heard so far. Let's go forward, Reese, I just want to point this out. This is this idea of why Little Dry Creek, where that little dashed red line is, as a trail might be a really nice connection. So it is a missing link in what is otherwise a pretty huge comprehensive trail system, which relies on Clarkson Bikeway to bring you back up through, but builds up all the way over to the South Platte Trail, comes down to Big Dry Creek, and provides which connects, of course, to Highland, but also provides a nice loop around Englewood. So that's the idea of why we would think about Little Dry Creek as a component of a trail through this area. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so again, I'm happy to open this up to comment, because I know sometimes the pictures don't quite capture what you want to say, but which is the one that when you think of a trail in city center, it's not going to be a mountain hiking trail. So, but what is it? Is it marked a specific way? Is it really just a sidewalk? Number C there, just if you kind of look down at the pictures, that's a picture of the Indianapolis Cultural Trail, and they have a certain pattern and they have certain markings, and it sort of links all of these key areas within their city. It's just an idea, but it can also just be a big sidewalk. So just curious what folks' ideas are about what is a trail element through this area. And I thought I saw a hand up. Sorry, I didn't call on you, but I don't see it now. So maybe
I think Carl might have his hand up right now.
Oh, Carl, there you are. Okay. Yes, Carl.
The missing link on the Little Dry Creek Trail. Make that a connecting link.
Sorry, Carl, we're having just a little trouble catching you there. Why don't you try again?
The missing link on the Little Dry Creek Trail that you have there.
Yes.
Is there a plan to make that a connecting link in there?
I think there's not a specific plan at the moment. It is being studied. It has been looked at as part of what do we do with that Little Dry Creek piece that is currently in a pipe underneath the development. But it is definitely could be part of our vision for how we prefer things to be as we go forward, if we're interested in that. There isn't currently a specific plan to make that happen, but it would be something that could be considered.
Okay, because I would like to see that.
You would like to
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's.
That would make a trail from Clarkson through downtown Englewood, clear to the Platte River.
Yep. That would be fabulous.
Uh,
Okay, wonderful. We'll make sure we also note that. Yes, Leslie.
Hi, I just wanted to give some feedback in regards to, this poll, this piece of the poll that we're taking right now. I think it's really important for us to, when we're designing these trails, to make it clear the delineation between, bikers, pedestrians, folks that are doing different things. Because I've seen, on a lot of these recreational trails around here that people often have a habit of running into each other, if that's not the case. But then also, if we're trying to link the wellness district to this Englewood Parkway area, I think it's really important to essentially, delineate that there's a way for commuters and people who are trying to get to the nearby rail station, that this is a viable option for them. And so I feel like really being able to clearly have the signage and see that is a huge part of making this whole thing viable, at least to me, because my huge concern with this is making sure that the wellness district can get to the city center, can get to all these different places. But yeah.
Yeah. Now, just to follow up on that for some clarity, do you feel that, because a trail could emphasize pedestrian movement, say for seniors and folks, and do you feel bikes are appropriate, or do you feel like there should be other facilities as well to support that bike movement through the area?
So the slide that you showed, that's the proposed thing where you have the sidewalk and then the bike lane and then the parked lane of cars and stuff. I think that's a really good idea because it keeps everyone relatively integrated, but you're still showing that everyone can be a part of this. I feel like when you put it all on one big path together, it's kind of hard for people to see oh, I can do this here, then this year, then this year as well. Sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, great. That's good distinction. Thank you. Judith?
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't want bicyclists running over pedestrians. So I think that has been an issue, but also on Clarkson Street, where this trail is going to run into Clarkson, are you still going to be able to drive Clarkson to Hamden, or is there going to be an interference there with the trail? I don't know where the trail would be.
No, I think, I don't think that any of these ideas where we relink a trail or we tie into Clarkson, which is a bike facility, it doesn't eliminate the driving or the vehicular movement. It just has to work with it. And so it might have to cross the street, for instance, there might be a crossing, but it wouldn't eliminate cars.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. Yes, and I think Tim and then Carl again, and then we'll see how we're doing on time here.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think it would be really great to have a green connection from a continuation of the existing greenway through downtown that separates bicycles, pedestrians from cars. So having a corridor through there that's adds to green space that also connects all the way to the Platte and the downtown to the city center.
Yes. Okay. Great. Just taking a few notes. Okay, wonderful. Carl, go ahead.
A little clarification on the Clarkson trail. That trail is already there. There'd be nothing that would be changing there. And it connects to the bike path that goes up and down Clarkson. Another point that was made on the medical center connecting to the light rail station. We have a trolley that does that, but it's not really that. It runs pretty often, but it would probably need to run a little more. So we need some good paths for the trolley to go, which would be motor vehicle.
Carl, we're not catching all your words there.
Oh.
I think I was hearing them pretty clearly on my end.
Okay.
The trolley is
there
going to be an important piece of transportation between the medical center and the light rail station.
Yes, the trolley. Great. I definitely got your comment there about the trolley and the role that it should play. Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Let's take just a couple more because I know this is a big one. So Ross,
You're
go
calling
ahead.
up to say.
Oh,
Hey guys, my name's Ross Carpenter. I have to jump off in a sec, but just wanted to mention kind of a global comment around the design. I'm with Newmark Merrill. I handle our regional leasing. We're the property manager for Englewood Marketplace, where the Big Lots was located.
mhm.
And I just want to say firstly that Englewood has been a great partner. We have 90 shopping centers across the US, and certainly in Colorado, they've been sort of one of the most forward thinking and kind of proactive cities at the staff level and in the police in kind of dealing with the crime and kind of unhoused issue that we've really seen an uptick in across Colorado, really in every community, particularly over in the last 2 years. But Englewood definitely more so. I think over half of the budget still comes from the municipal budget, comes from retail sales, and we are, working hard to kind of get that back up on its feet. But we're more than 50% vacant. We've lost 3 tenants in the last year, explicitly due to kind of crime issues and vagrancy and that. And my fear in this is, they just put millions of dollars into revamping that park just south of the center. And we can't lease that restaurant space because every time people go over there, there's an encampment kind of enjoying the new improvements for the park. And, we definitely want to have improvements to the space. We just don't want to see those improvements become an attractive nuisance, and just want to ensure that there's as much money and forethought going into management of those areas, not just putting them up, but making sure that they're not abused and, they're actually getting utilized.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Yes, okay. So duly noted for sure, that needs to be part of the vision is how do we manage this space and make it safe for everyone and appealing to go to. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good comment. Yes, Colin.
Thank you. I appreciate all the information you all are providing. I'll kind of follow up with what Ross is saying. I think it's partially because it's a bit of a dead end situation. There is no connection. There is nothing that allows people to come through and continue to use it. So having this connection, and I want to push a little bit for opening up the Little Dry Creek and the opportunity that could be there in order to, really make this an enhancement for the city and a safer place, but a more connected place too. If people, I've ridden that before and I've gotten to the top and have no idea where to go. And, I'm sure I'm not the only one. And so I think if we can make that connection, I think it'll make it a lot more people coming through there, which will, I think, then move on the vagrant community or the unhoused community into maybe not being there because they won't want to be around all that activity. And then I also just wanted to follow up on what Carl had said about the Englewood trolley. I think that's an important piece and an important component to this area that is not very well utilized. So if we can figure out a way to promote that and utilize that more, I think that's going to be a really good benefit for this area, because it's an amazing amenity, that first last mile that it covers to get from the light rail station all the way up to Swedish is an incredible benefit that I think could be used even more.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And thank you for reiterating Carl's point there that I was having trouble hearing, but it's great. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, let's move on. I don't think we have too much left, but we are, it's after 7.
Yeah,
So
I think this is the last category here, placemaking.
yeah. All right. So this category is is part of it. Sometimes this is more of an outcome, right? Like if we make great places and we redevelop or we activate our land use and we have pedestrian space and we have green and we link things and activate things, then maybe that starts to become more of a place. But we do want to note that placemaking elements can be a differentiator also, and part of an overall strategy. So if our vision is to do all these other things, then what we've heard is that we should think about this. Maybe the districts each have their own identity, city center and downtown and the wellness district, and they're linked, right? But they each kind of carry their own identity. That's one idea. We did hear a lot about, as you go into this space, unlike today when you go in and there's a lot of parking, but you should really have that sense of discovery. You should move into the space and kind of want to move through it and see what else there is. So that's that idea. And that comes through a whole lot of things, right? Coming together just right. One idea that some folks had mentioned was the use of color. And one of the ideas was that perhaps there are old Cinderella City Mall colors that could be active through the area, be part of the landscape, or could be even part of the flowering garden kind of idea. It should draw people in, and it should become a destination of its own. That's the idea, is that you don't just drive through it to get to the other side. You want to go there. So with that in mind, let's go to the next one. And these would be things or ideas that you have around what makes a place. So now we go back to our model here, and this is kind of getting at the separated bike facility, the sidewalk, the signage. You can see that in the front of the screen there, there's like a little, wayfinding signage, or Englewood is special, and here's the history of Englewood ideas. Having street level restaurants or retail options, patios, seating, plants, lighting can also add to character and kind of determine where things are going, and your street style. So in 2021, Englewood actually created a placemaking guide, if you're not aware of that. And if you look at that, there are some ideas in there of things that could be considered sort of Englewood, the ideas, colors, and patterns that might represent Englewood. So these are just a smattering of those. But so those are certainly ideas that could be incorporated into the overall vision. So I think this is our last question, is what aligns with your sense of placemaking? And I might throw out one that's just such an easy target to talk about, but everyone kind of knows where Larimer Square is downtown, right? And if you think about Larimer Square downtown, you think about it's older, it's historic, it has certain treatments, that's the character, that is the place, right? And so when you think about Englewood Parkway, what aspects of things do you want to emphasize to really make this an Englewood place? So these pictures might capture it, but also happy to throw some extra into the mix here. Brenda.
Yeah, I like C is kind of, I don't know, most aesthetically pleasing to me. But when I think about Englewood and I think about this area, I think about the social spaces that are the most popular. And right now, one of our best social spaces, of course, is that area at the city center where we're probably going to put that park, and it's that fountain. It is that fountain that has a lot of historic kind of value to people. That's the thing that makes, that reminds us of Cinderella City. And we see kids playing there in that water fountain, and we have a lot of benches and of course the artwork. So I think about this corridor as having, you talked about those pocket parks, but also places where people eat. And I'm not so concerned about, I don't know, the placemaking and signage is good to have. But it's not as critical as element as just creating these social spaces where people can sit in the shade and have a place to rest and feel like they're not just sitting at a bus stop.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Good comment. Okay. Leslie, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. So I kind of want to tag off Brenda's comments there a little bit. I don't know how much this is more applicable to city center than the Englewood Parkway stuff that we're discussing. But one of the big things that kind of keeps me from like being in the city center area or using Englewood Parkway to get there is because like if I'm going to Nixon's or one of the coffee shops or whatever is near there, there's nowhere to really be afterwards, it feels like, in a way that like feels consolidated. Like it feels all kind of spread out and it feels awkward. So the reason why I ended up, picking C is like it feels like a plaza, somewhere where you can actually be around other people and stuff, right? I love the paseos that are on South Broadway. I think that's like a really good example of like, what we should be creating around the businesses there. But that's at least my take on it. So
yeah, no, I think that's a great comment. I can totally relate to that. Like, where do I go now? Should I just go hang out near Walmart?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so good, like really making those spaces. So the social spaces or plazas, those are the keywords. I'm paseos, writing those down. So yes, Tim, and then Jenna.
I'd like to say that the signage you showed in your first rendering is far better than the ones that you showed the next one over. I think the signage that was chosen is complicated, hard to build. And I just think there's better opportunities, simpler ways to do that would be more informative. And I really hope that this signage is relooked at.
Okay.
Be simplified.
So from the 2021 placemaking guide, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like the sign you had in your rendering was fabulous compared to those. And then secondly, placemaking, I just really hope for downtown Englewood. Everything I've seen so far is sort of anywhere downtown. And Englewood just has a lot of history. It has a lot going for it. It's the most interesting city I think I've ever understood. And that some of those history and some of those things can be brought out as part of the placemaking exercise. It's not about paving, like the first thing somebody's going to want to do is put gas lamps in there and those generally represent a Victorian period that Englewood never had.
Yep, we went there.
Englewood is like an industrial, kind of rough and tumble town, very eclectic. And I hope that's reflected in the placemaking.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. No, I don't think we should have Victorian gas lamps. That was not quite our era.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, great. Jenna, go ahead.
Yeah, I like what Tim said about the placemaking needing to be kind of authentic to Englewood and not just either generic or something that feels a little kitschy or unauthentic. But the other thing I was going to mention was I'm relatively new to Englewood, so I was not familiar with those placemaking images that you had shown previously. I was also curious if there was specific placemaking standards for the Downtown Englewood Development Authority, and if like that relates to whatever placemaking happens along Englewood Parkway, and just figuring out how, maybe the Parkway has its own unique thing going on, but how does it integrate with the vision that the whole city has, that the Downtown Development Authority has, and are there like links between all of that tie in, and not that it all has to look the same, but just some motifs that continue through everything.
Yeah, John, I might have to ask you that question. I don't know. I don't know that there is that is all put together yet. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think that's an idea, but it hasn't come to fruition yet. But yes, the director of the Development Authority, I have heard her on a number of occasions talk about this in relationship to the redevelopment efforts at City Center. And she has been talking to us about how can we go and recapture some of these elements that exist in the historical fabric of Broadway. And she's shown us some of the thoughts processes there, some images of some of the existing buildings down there, and how could those things be incorporated into new buildings that would develop farther to the west. It's an idea out there that I think is pretty strong that she's going to champion. But at this point, we haven't set sail on starting that process.
Thank you, John. That's a good answer. It's kind of where I was thinking, is we're maybe not yet, but definitely something we should be doing or thinking about, right? How did they?
Yeah, it's out there on the table.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Reese, we have one more open-ended question then for folks.
Yep. Right after this, I think we have one more chance
Okay.
for feedback.
Yeah, so just think about, I mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff tonight, so this has been fabulous. But think if there are any things about any of these elements. One, are we missing some elements? That is, you know, I know safety, of course, is part of all of these, but if you think there's something that we're missing, if you feel there's something that we haven't quite captured in terms of the park space or the potential for park or something it should have, anything that comes to mind, this is sort of that opportunity to just share any thoughts you have. And again, remember what as we go to conclude this, we will definitely have sort of that concept for Englewood Parkway, the actual road, right? But then it will be supported by these other elements of the vision that talk about what would help activate the parkway. So it's kind of both the road and the surroundings. Connection to the neighborhood north. Oh, yes, such a good one. We'd heard that as well. We kind of forgot to add that into this, but we did hear that there's that's the neighborhood right to the north, and then there's the connection to South Platte River Trail, and boy, we sure should emphasize that. So that's great. Continuation of the waterway, and by that I'm assuming we're saying Little Dry Creek is what you're referring to. Well thought out connection to the wellness district. I really like that. Yeah. There are some improvements coming to the wellness district also. So hopefully we coordinate and get that all aligned. Okay, green infrastructure and water quality. So keeping that in mind, I think I really like that idea. We haven't talked too much about specific green infrastructure with other folks yet, but that's absolutely should be part of the vision. Easily drive south to access Hamden off of Elodie. Okay, there aren't many options to get south conveniently for Cushing Park neighbors. Okay, yeah, so through the city center, essentially. Social spaces is not accomplished with wide boulevards. Agreed. Public art, interpretive signing. Yes, pop-up events, food trucks, things that activate the space. Yes. That draw people in on a Saturday morning to go to the farmer's market. Yep. Great. EV charging. Yeah. So that's a great one. In that image where we showed you the on-street parking, the idea behind that is that, yes, some of that could be parking. It could be a drop zone for Ubers and everyone else. It could be EV charging, but having that space along the parkway and managing it differently in different locations is just fine. It's all part of the same, accommodation in that curbside space. Pollinator plants, yeah, great. Yeah, and we did hear community gardens as well. So that's a kind of another component of the park space or regreening. Intentional north-south traffic. Gotcha. So along a particular street like Elodie, or accommodating that traffic in a specific place, maybe, so that we avoid some of the, bring back Little Dry Creek.
That's not me.
Good. Well, it's good to hear, Tim, that there's others out there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. good. Those are all excellent, you guys. It's a great way to wrap up. And I would say too, like if you have other thoughts or you think of something that isn't included, feel free to email John. But we definitely would take more additional comments. So, all right. So from here forward, I guess it must be time. My dog's going crazy. We're going to work to develop the final report. So we're going to take all of this and all this imagery and all these components of the vision, as well as some of the short-term improvements. We're going to that developed into a report. Reese, I'm going to let you wrap there.
What was that?
I'm going to let you wrap because my dog.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I just want to say thank you everyone for coming. And like we said, we'll incorporate all this feedback into the final report. And yeah, anything else that you'd like to include, John?
Thank you very much for attending. Your feedback was excellent and will be very helpful for this final report. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you. Good job.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Pepper's ready
John.
to.
I'm gonna have
go
to
to
go feed
bed.
the dog. Gotta go.
All right.
All right,
Talk to
bye,
you
Beth.
tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.